Hello, everyone, and welcome to Better, Newsweek's weekly interview show. My name is Dorie Clark, and I am here with this week's guest. His name is Scott Miller. We're going to be talking about how to transform your mindset. Scott is the author of a new book called Master Mentors Volume 2. It's very exciting. There's interviews that he's done with 30 plus thinkers. I have to confess, I was in Master Mentors Volume 1, so that was, and there's the playing card for it, exactly. So I am very familiar with Scott's series and appreciate being in number 1. And we want to hear all the great insights from Volume 2 so that you can improve the quality of your life. Scott Miller, welcome.
Dorie Clark, thank you for the platform and the spotlight. Truly honored that you agreed to be spotlighted in Master Mentors Volume 1. Like you, I'm privileged to have a podcast and each week interview amazing guests, and with their permission, write about them in this 10-volume series. Volume 2 just out this week, and looking forward to ultimately having 10 books shining the spotlight on 300 master mentors.
That is a lot of master mentors. I love it. And if you are tuning in from around the world, please feel free to type into the chat box and let us know who you are and where you're dialing in from. And we are taking your questions today for Scott Miller. We're talking about mentorship. We're talking about transforming your mindset and all the good pieces of life advice that one might have. Now, Scott, let's start with a concept of mentorship in general here, because there are a lot of people, I hear from tons of people in corporate life, they're like, I'd like a mentor, like a real world mentor, not just the awesome people inside your books, but it's often hard to get a mentor. What is your advice for people who want to cultivate relationships or try to seek out folks that they know in the real world to try to provide guidance for them?
Well, I think it's the question. I think there's different ways to define mentorship, Dorie, right? There's the kind of traditional way of inside an organization. If you're working for a company and they may have a mentoring program where they match mentees, kind of up and coming talent with more established executives in the company. You go through a multi-week, multi-month program. And that's a great way to have a mentor, but not everyone has that. With the increase of hybrid work and side hustles and creating NFTs and, Etsy accounts, you don't always have the same network we used to have. So I think there's a couple of other ways that you can adopt mentors. One is just to be bold. I mean, I don't know about you, but every celebrity, every book author, every entrepreneur, they're just like you and I. They still sit in their bed at night at 9:30 and scroll through their LinkedIn and Instagram and they read their messages. They are just like you and I. And so I'd say, like Dorie talks about in a lot of her books around your brand is, be bold and ask. No one can help you if you don't ask. No one can help you if you don't know you need help. So there's lots of ways to ask for mentorship. I think you should set some boundaries, meaning when you ask someone to be your mentor, make it very clear that you won't take advantage of them. You won't ask them to fund your business or open their metaphorical Rolodex, right? I'd like to have...
I only want to meet with you every day for the rest of your life.
No, I'm sorry, but I can't do that unless you're my wife. So I think it's important to take the initiative. Hey, what I could use is 4 30-minute sessions. I will do them on your time, on your days, around your calendar. I will be on time. I'll be prepared. And when I make commitments, I will follow through of them. I will not ask you to give me any outside, recommendations or to lend me your network or funding. I promise not to take advantage of you. I'd like to get your insight on these specific things. Now, to me, that's kind of irresistible, okay? You're not going to ask me for a loan. You're not going to ask me to introduce you to all my, network. And by the way, it's my choice at the end of the mentoring if I choose to do anything more than we've agreed to, but you put the ball in my court. That's important. It's vital. I think it will up your odds of getting a mentor outside the traditional system. But I'll also share a third comment. And you've been this for me. I followed your career and knew of you long before we met and became personal friends and professional colleagues. You were a mentor of mine for several years. I made you my mentor and you didn't even know I was alive. You had no idea the force of nature that would come into your life known as the Scott Miller. But this is true, right? Seth Godin and Dan Pink and Susan Cain and Liz Wiseman and Kim Scott and on and on. I anointed these people my mentors. I read their books. I listened to their podcasts. I listened to them over and over again. I mean, I remember you once writing an article where you said, stop telling people, can I just pick your brain? I remember that. I was like, oh my gosh, I say that so much. I've got to stop saying that. So I do absolutely think there is a role for you to have mentors in your life that actually may live and die and never know you're alive, but you absorb so much from them. And then look at us now. We are friends now. I will call you for a favor. Someday you might call me for a favor, but you were a mentor to me long before you even knew that I was around.
I love that. And I think in many ways, of course, this validates the premise of your book, Scott. The book that Scott has just written is Master Mentors Volume 2. And we can have mentors, of course, people we know, people we work with, people in the real world, but we also can have mentors from afar and be learning from them in books, podcasts, and all the various ways that we are able to learn these days. We're here with Scott Miller. You can check out his work and learn more about him at scottjeffreymiller.com. And this is, of course, Newsweek's weekly interview show, Better. I'm Dorie Clark. And if you're enjoying the conversation, hit the like and the share button so that your friends and colleagues can benefit from it as well. And we want to say hi to some of our great friends tuning in from around the world. Sergio's here. Anna's in New Hampshire. Zulima's back from Mexico. Jay Anna is here. Subrata's here. Adnan in Turkey. We have Joy from Kentucky. Prashant in Mumbai. Masood is in Karachi. David's in Boston. Doreen's in Ohio. Diana's in Columbia, South Carolina, and more. We love having every single one of you. Type your questions for Scott Miller into the chat box. And Scott, one thing that I was curious about, so Master Mentors Volume 2 contains insights and highlights from your conversations with a variety of the world's top business thinkers, entrepreneurs, leaders, etc. In terms of this particular volume, do you have a piece of advice that you have been using personally, or something that, I realize they're all your favorite child, but is there anything that comes to mind as something that you have found particularly useful in your own life?
Absolutely. As you mentioned, with every book that I publish, I also create a card deck. When I'm out keynoting, I actually have the card deck that I pass out to everybody so they can take the metaphorical PowerPoint home to them. So when you see me hold up a card, you know what that is. Tasha Urich is Master Mentor number 35. Tasha is an organizational psychologist. I believe she lives in Colorado. And I came upon her because of her phenomenal book called Insight. It's arguably the best book ever written about the power of self-awareness. And I think we use this term a lot, but so few of us are truly self-aware. And Tasha really teaches these concepts around, if you want to be a better leader, a better friend, a better partner, a better spouse, better parent, better neighbor, better committee member, then you need to know what it's like to work with you, what it's like to join a Zoom meeting, or what it's like to be a guest on Dorie Clark's, Newsweek program, what it's like to join a weekly meeting with you, what it's like to work a trade show booth. And you won't know unless you ask. You cannot be self-aware unless you ask people for feedback. Now, most of us, when we ask people what it's like to have us on their podcast, are going to say, "Oh, Scott, you did a great job. Your lighting wasn't perfect, but otherwise you were engaging and it was all great." But rarely is Dorie going to say to me, "Well, actually, Scott, can I tell you, there was 5 things that really were poor." No, because Dorie's gracious and diplomatic. Now, we're good friends, so she might take me to task after this, and I'll be better for it. My point is, you've got it safe, got to make it safe for others to tell you their truth. You've got to ask questions that are pointed and then create the conditions where the other people feel like you really are interested in improving. Here's a great example. Dorie, my natural voice level is right here. I talk like this all the time, whether there's 7,000 people in an audience, or whether I'm on a Zoom call or a StreamYard with you, or horrifyingly, whether I'm sitting next to my wife driving up to a dinner party and she's 4 feet from me. This is my natural voice level. And Stephanie will say to me, "Why are you screaming?" I'm like, 2 feet. It's because I lack self-awareness when my voice should oftentimes modulate and come down to this level. And now a whole audience, whole huge segment is liking me more right now. When I talk like this, I'm repugnant to some people, and I have to become better at understanding what it's like to be around Scott Miller, because we have no idea really. And how you build your self-awareness, thanks to Dr. Urich, is by asking, by being open, by making it safe for people to tell you the truth about their experience with you. Highly recommend Dr. Urich's book called Insight.
What a great summation and use of all of that. Thank you very much for that, Scott. Also, your sharing your personal confessions with us. I love you regardless of how loud you are. I personally, my pet peeve is when you're at a crowded dinner with people and there's like 10 people at the table, and where you're going around and someone's like, "Oh, hello, nice to meet you," and you say, "Can you speak up?" And they say, "How's this? Is this better?" And I'm like, no, it's absolutely not better. Like, learn. So I'm glad that you have solved that problem for yourself. And we want to say hi to our great friends. Alexander is here from Johannesburg. Alicia is back from Berkeley. Abid is here from Toronto. We've got Crystal from the San Francisco Bay Area. Peter is back from Edinburgh. Sergio is in Fort Worth, and Subrata in India. And Anna in New Hampshire has a great question for you, Scott. She's curious about habits. She said, turning a behavior into a habit first needs to be routine. So how do you start in the first place and then stay motivated in approaching your goal? Now, you have spent many years working at Franklin Covey. Of course, Stephen Covey was the author of the famous book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So I am sure you eat and breathe and sleep habits. And also, of course, that's one of the things that you've touched upon in your Master Mentors volumes. Yeah. So what is your perspective on starting and keeping at great habits?
There's so much psychology and research around habit formation. And I'm glad you asked that question, whether it be Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit, or Stephen Covey's book, which has sold nearly 50 million copies around the 7 habits. Master Mentor in volume 2 is BJ Fogg. BJ Fogg is number 39. He wrote a phenomenal book called Tiny Habits. He's a Stanford researcher, phenomenal guy. Love this book called Tiny Habits. And basically, he talks about the psychology of, reward and focus, maybe breaking some of the more daunting tasks down into smaller tasks. Dr. Covey, when he was alive, had a metaphor, Anna, and he would say, if you look at a big ocean liner or a big cruise ship, they usually have multi-story rudders, right? Like 50, 60 yards high. And these rudders are actually controlled by smaller, like 3 or 4 foot trim tab rudders. Like literally there is this multi-story giant rudder, but there's these really smaller 3 or 4 feet high rudders that are known as trim tabs. And those trim tabs is what helps to change the big rudder. So BJ Fogg will tell you in his book, Tiny Habits, that one of the reasons why most of us aren't able to create sustaining habits for life-changing success is they're daunting, right? I mean, it's a lot to stop smoking. It's a lot to get up every morning at 4 o'clock and go to the gym, especially when you've got 3 sons and 4 businesses and you're writing books. And there's always a reason to turn the car towards the donut shop than the gym. Welcome to my morning this morning at 5 o'clock. It was delicious. It was an apple sauce cinnamon donut this morning with a cup of coffee. I loved it. Did not go to the gym. BJ will tell you it is daunting, right? You got to prepare. You've got to get in the mindset. You got to set out your clothes, got to set out your keys, get your water bottle set, and have that willpower. Break it down, and maybe you go to the gym for 15 minutes. Who cares if you have been there for 15 minutes? It was 15 minutes more than I went this morning. So I like the research that BJ has done around making it easier. If you've got some habits that you want to change, make it easier. A lot of psychology around how the Red Cross now makes it much easier for you to donate to natural disaster victims. You can text the money now. You don't have to log in and put in your credit card. They partner with phone carriers, and they add it to your bill, and their fundraising has exponentiated because they've combined motivation with ease. And I think when you think about your customers, how to make it easier to buy from you, have you combined both their motivation with making it easy? And your own habits, are you making it easy to go to the gym? Maybe pick a gym that's on the opposite side of the city, that's close from the donut shop. BJ Fogg, I think you'll really like his book, Tiny Habits.
That's great. Thank you, Scott. Talking to you is great because it's sort of like this Cliff Notes greatest hits, where you're giving us the insights from all of the great folks you've
interviewed. I want to clarify that because it's true. But I did not write this book so that everybody would not go learn more about the mentors. I wrote the book for the opposite, right? I spent the first half of my career pretty much having the spotlight on me. If you know me, you know that. And the last half of my life and career, I'm turning the spotlight onto others. So I very much want people to learn about Tasha Eurich and go buy her books or follow her. I really mean this to be a platform where you can get access to other mentors. I once heard a research study said that, something like 99.4% of humans have never had an original thought. And after I recovered from that depressing thought, I realized, that's probably true. I haven't either had a truly original thought in life. But what I can do is I can be an aggregator, a pollinator, and give credit to and build the spotlights on other people. And that's something I'm trying to do, is be a great aggregator and a responsible pollinator of other people's ideas.
I love it. No one could be a better bee than you, Scott.
You.
This is excellent. And if you're interested in learning more and acquainting yourself with 30 new thinkers, check out Scott's book, Master Mentors Volume 2. Or if you want to check out 30 additional ones, including one that I'm in, you can look at Master Mentors Volume 1. And to make sure other people can benefit from the conversation, hit the like and the share button so that your friends can learn from this interview as well. We're talking with Scott Miller. His website is scottjeffreymiller.com, so you can learn more there. We also want to say hi to our amazing friends who are joining us. Debbie is tuning in, Maggie from Oregon, Teresa's in Canada, Patricia's joining us again from Stockton, Gail is in North Carolina, Kathy's in St. Louis, and Hetty is in Philadelphia. We love having all of you. And a great question came in, Scott, from Karen. And it's just the graphic is going to cut off your face. So I'm not going to put the graphic up there, but I'll give you a synopsis of Karen's great question. She said, pre-COVID, it was much easier to find an informal mentor at work. A lot of relationships are built from impromptu conversations, but in the world of remote work, it's hard to meet anyone outside the people you work with every single day. What are your thoughts about cultivating the kind of relationships where we can be, creating new mentorship connections and learning from a broader range of people under those circumstances?
It's a very real scenario a lot of us are facing. So I might challenge a couple of premises. Listen, I spent my entire life learning that the most important thing in life is relationships, our relationships. I've learned that. But not everything has to be based on a deep-rooted relationship. Like, for example, I didn't know Dorie Clark when I reached out to her and asked her to come on the podcast. She didn't know me, right? I knew of her, but she didn't know me. And over the course of several years, we've developed a relationship. But kind of early into meeting Dorie, I called her up and asked her a few questions about certain things in life. And we didn't have a relationship. We'd met for 30 minutes on a podcast, but I think I kept my questions tight and specific. I didn't stalk her. I left her alone for a few months. And I don't know that every mentorship mentee relationship has to have a deep, trusting relationship. I'll tell you again, I think you should demonstrate some courage. Move outside of your comfort zone. Get clear on what it is you're trying to do. What is it you're trying to accomplish? And then find someone that you know, or maybe you don't even know, that you think might be able to mentor you. By the way, I think a lot of us make the mistake, Dorie, of saying, you know what? I want to open up a series of hair salons. I'm going to go to the biggest hair salon business in town. Well, the fact of the matter is they're probably really busy. But what I find a mentor, I don't always look for the most successful person. If I want to have someone mentor me and had a great 40-year marriage, I don't go to the person who's had a 40-year marriage. I go to the person who's had 4 marriages, because I'm going to learn more on how to avoid their mistakes. I can't replicate their patience and their personality. I don't have their genius or their education. If I want to learn how to grow a great business, I go to the girl or the guy that's had 3 bankruptcies. Like, what can I avoid? Because half of success in life is just avoiding the big pitfalls, not trying to become Dorie Clark. I cannot become Dorie Clark. So I think you should first get clear on what is it you're trying to accomplish. Do you know of someone out there, or know of someone that maybe has done that or has failed at doing that? And just reach out to them, instant message them. Honestly, half of the guests on our podcast, we've just instant messaged on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or YouTube and said, hey, I do this, you do that. If I'm good at this, this, and this, and I can prove it to you, would you come on the podcast? And that's how we land people like Ariana Huffington and James Clear and Robin Sharma and Deepak Chopra, right? They don't know who Scott Miller is. I'm pretty bold. I'll tell you, I'll end with this on this topic. We've all heard this phrase, but I think it's so true. What separates successful people from unsuccessful people is successful people are just willing to do what unsuccessful people aren't willing to do. So I'm willing to have a no all the time, right? I'm willing to reach out to anybody and say, hey, would you mentor me? But here's what that means. 4 sessions, 30 minutes, I'm on time, no personal requests, no mission creep, no surprises, no ambush. I promise I'll make it worth your 4 30-minute sessions. And later, if I can do anything for you, carte blanche. 9 times out of 10, the person will say yes. Use your resourcefulness, use your initiative, use your bold courage, and just reach out to people.
That's very cool. Thank you. We're here with Scott Miller. You can learn more about Scott at his website. It's scottjeffreymiller.com. The new book is called Master Mentors Volume 2. And if you want to make sure you never miss one of our weekly Newsweek interview shows, you can tune in, learn how to, sign up and get reminders. Just go to my website at dorieclark.com and you can download a free self-assessment, join the email list, and you'll get reminders about these great weekly conversations, which happen every Thursday at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, 5 o'clock in London. And a great question, Scott, came in from Alicia. She was interested in following up on what you were talking about around insight and self-awareness, the interview with Tasha Urich. And she wants to know, what are a few specific pointed questions you recommend that we ask others in order to increase our self-awareness? It sounds like you've undertaken this process yourself. Are there any pointers that you can share with the rest of us?
I think so. First, I would say you want to pick a team. I usually recommend like a team of 6 or 8 people from a lot of varieties in your life, right? Not just your champions, not the person who just think you walk on water, but also people that you are.
Oh, and I think we might have lost our friend Scott Miller, but I have a feeling that he will be back soon. So don't worry at all. We will continue the conversation as soon as he logs back in. But in the meantime, I actually wanted to pick up on a strand that Scott was talking about. Oh, well, hold that thought. I think he's here. Here we go.
Right.
Hi again, Scott Miller. How's it going?
Thank you. Can I finish that thought?
You totally can. That's right.
Sorry about that. That was the internet. I'll blame it on the internet. I think you should pick a team of 6 or 8 people, right? People that like you and maybe that don't like you. And if you don't know people who don't like you, that means you're not self-aware. I can name the 40 people at Franklin Covey who don't like me. I know this, and it's a reality. Pick people from all walks of life. And then I think you should declare to them your intent. I tell you, one of the smartest things I've ever heard, Dorie, is that nearly all, if not all, conflict in life comes from mismatched or unfulfilled expectations. If you don't declare your intent, people will ascribe intent to you. So one of your phrases should be, hey, can I ask you some questions? And my intent is to become more self-aware. I'd like to be better, a better colleague, a better leader, a better team player, a better friend, a better committee member. Could I ask you, what are some of my blind spots? I know I have them. I'd like to have you courageously tell me, and I'm not going to react. I may not agree immediately, so give me a minute or two to kind of come around to it. But could you courageously share with me what some of my blind spots are? What are some of the things that I do or say that annoy people, that minimize my influence, that get in the way of me being the best friend, team member, colleague that I am? We've all got blind spots. I would really like to know them. And then when you set the conditions, now close your mouth. Take out a paper and a pencil and write them down. Do not dispute, deny, deflect. Oh, yeah, but Dorie, she talks all the time and I can never get it. No. Be quiet. And then say, oh my gosh, thank you. That took some courage. What a great friend you are. Yikes, I'm a little bit embarrassed by that, but I'm so grateful for you. Hey, can I ask you a question? When I'm doing that, why do you think I'm doing that? Do I seem insecure? Do I seem jealous? Am I in over my head? Do I have imposter syndrome? Because I don't want to keep doing that. That's so valuable. I know you're not a psychologist, but you must have some sense for why I'm doing that, whether it's clicking my pen or never taking responsibility or always, clearing my throat in a meeting. I mean, we've all got habits that annoy people. I think it's a great lesson to just open it up and say, I really would like for you to tell me what my blind spots are. And Dorie, sometimes you might need to send it into an email and say, hey, I've been thinking, I really value you. I really trust your influence. My sense is, in our many occasions, you've got some feedback for me. I would just love to hear it. Could you send me a couple of thoughts via email? I'd love to digest them. And then maybe if you'd be willing, can I come and talk to you about it in person? Because some people might not feel comfortable sharing it right there in the moment, especially if they're your detractor. Everybody is more courageous in email. If you want to get the truth, go out to your detractors, send them an email and ask them for confidential advice, and then tell them you will not share it. You will hold that confidential, and how much you appreciate them respecting you enough to help them make you grow. And you will get some great feedback.
I love that. That's great advice. We're here with Scott Miller, the author of the new book, Master Mentors Volume 2. And one thing I especially like about that, Scott, is, I think for most of us, my mama is tuned in on the live stream, and she, like probably many mamas across the land, always sort of drilled in the philosophy, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all, which I think is generally very good advice. But what it means is that if there's somebody who wants to have feedback about something and it's, a negative, they're not going to get it from me or from a lot of people unless they specifically ask.
Yeah. Can I both validate and challenge your mom's wisdom? I know of your mother because I follow your social posts, and she seems like a total class act. I think you're going to see her soon. Your mother gave you great advice as a human being. And I think as a leader, we have to move a little bit past your mom's solid advice because most of us have self-defeating blind spots that no one ever had the courage to share with us. One of the mentors in the book, the first book, is Kim Scott. She wrote the book Radical Candor. And Kim Scott shares this life-changing moment where her boss at Google, who was Sheryl Sandberg before she went to Facebook and Meta and now retiring, walked out of a meeting once with Kim Scott and said, "Hey, so how do you think that went?" And Kim Scott said, "It went great. I mean, they loved it. Eric Schmidt and one of the founders of Google were loving it." And Sheryl said to Kim Scott, "Not really, Kim. You kind of sounded stupid. Every third word was or 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 I was like, or he was like." And Kim Scott said, wasn't very delicate, but it was the biggest gift that Sheryl Sandberg had ever given her, because as if she was leading her whole entire life with her zipper down or spinach in her teeth. And Sheryl had the radical candor to share with Kim Scott the truth. Of course, the opposite of radical candor, according to Kim Scott, author of the amazing book, Radical Candor, is ruinous empathy. I'm going to say it again. The opposite of radical candor is ruinous empathy. So all of us, when we're giving people feedback, we have to declare our intent. We have to balance courage with diplomacy. We have to understand what's it like to be on the receiving end of feedback from Scott Miller, because I'm passionate about everything. And some people see anger in my face. I'm not angry at all. I'm just passionate and I'm an intense person. So sometimes I have to calibrate my feedback to make sure that I'm saying it in a way that the other person can receive it. That's called listening to the listening. And that comes from Julian Treasure, the famous TED Talk author from Britain, who wrote some great books around how to speak so how you're heard. You've got to give feedback to others in a way that they can understand it and appreciate it and not feel defensive. It's an art that's practicable.
Absolutely. And that's a great point, Scott. I agree with you entirely. I think a key element here is, what is your position in relation to the other person?
Yes.
If you are their boss, it actually is a kind of moral responsibility that you have. It's a technical and a moral responsibility. You are in charge of this person. It's your job to help develop them and make them better. And so if they need feedback, sometimes even negative feedback, in order to do that, then that's part of the care that you are exerting on their behalf. If, however, you are a random person dealing with a random stranger and just saying, "You really should never wear that color. That doesn't look good on you." Right. Well,
that's called being reckless, right? Seth Godin talked about that, the difference between being fearless and being reckless. You're absolutely right, Dorie. As a leader, it's incumbent upon you to help people understand their blind spots. It's a gift. It's an absolute gift that not everyone is comfortable doing, which means you have to build the courage muscle and practice it. You're going to get it wrong sometimes. It's why my human resource file is an expandable folder, because I didn't always get it wrong, which I think the best way to do it real quickly is to declare your intent. "Hey, Dorie, thanks for coming in today. I'd like to have a high courage conversation with you. My intent is not to minimize you or to embarrass you or to negatively impact your self-esteem. My intent actually is to help you better understand your blind spots. We all have them, so that you can build a better career here and gain more influence. I might need a do-over. I might not use all the words, but my intent is to help you. And it's in that spirit that I want to share with you that on the Monday morning meetings, I'm often finding, there you go.
So good. I think that's terrific. And I wish we had time for even more of the amazing questions that are pouring in. We're so glad to have all of you tuning in here. And I can see how much you've enjoyed the conversation with Scott Miller. Hopefully we'll be able to have him back again, because guess what, folks? He's writing 10 of these. So there will be other opportunities. But the book, for those who would like to get it, and I highly recommend it, Master Mentors Volume 2. It is a great complement to Master Mentors Volume 1, which features me. And you can learn more about Scott at his website, scottjeffreymiller.com. Scott, thank you so much for joining us.
Dorie, thank you for the spotlight. I appreciate you. Thanks everybody for joining. Great questions coming to Chat Pod. What an honor to share some time with you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.